Good. I think we're good. Are we good? I see the voice meter, so I think we're good. And I see 1, 2, YouTube drops in. All right, we're live on all 3 platforms. So good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you. It is a really, really disgusting Friday here. It is pouring down rain and windy and just not very pleasant. Say the only good thing is it's like 66 in my shop right now, which is not bad. I can live with 66. It's 58 outside, so a little bit chillier outside, about 8 degrees colder outside. I got a new clock slash thermometer for my shop, which I really like because it has a big digital clock and temperature readouts, so I don't have to try and guess. And I can also look at the outside temps and stuff too, because it's got an outside temp thing. So that was kind of nice. I found that at the Walmart. God, is there nothing you can't find at the Walmart? Pretty much anything I want, I can't find at the Walmart. They have everything except what I usually want. So anyway, how's everybody doing? Hope you all are having a good end of your week. I was very productive yesterday. I think, what did we end up? Last Wednesday when we were here, we drove in the wedges. Let me go over here. So we drove the wedges into the top of the mallet here. And this is a really big mallet head, by the way. This thing is huge. Look at how big that is. That's a true thumper mallet right there. I don't know if I should have made that smaller. You know, the nice thing is, excuse me. The nice thing is about this, that looks really big, doesn't it? But if I want to shave like a ½ an inch off each side, it's not a big deal. I can do that. I can bring it over, you know, take it to the chop saw or whatever, cut a ½ an inch off each side, re-chamfer these ends, and you know, I'm just going to put an oil finish on here, and so that would be really simple to do. So if I do find this to be a little large for my needs, I'll just take it down a little bit. So about a ½ an inch off, I mean, you're looking at about that big, which might have been a little bit more manageable. I probably should have gone that route, but you know what? It is what it is. So we'll get to this in a little bit. We're gonna just, I think I'll take this over to the bandsaw. I could get my flush trim out too. I might do the flush trim. We'll see. Basically, I'm just going to take this top part that's sticking out here. We're going to cut this off, and then I will sand this down on all sides here, get it looking all smooth and sexy, and then we're just going to put an oil finish on it. It's nothing crazy. I think I might do a tongue oil finish. It's either tongue oil or boiled linseed oil, but I like tongue oil, the tongue oil finish a little better. Now, it's not tongue oil, it's tongue oil finish. And that means that it actually has additional things in there. It's not just the oil. The finish is basically a varnish mixture that's put into the oil, and the varnish actually kind of hardens in the pores of the wood and provides more protection. It kind of seals the wood. So I like using a tongue oil finish rather than just regular like tongue oil. And then I have boiled linseed oil, but same thing, boiled linseed oil is really, it kind of soaks in a little bit, but it's surface and it does wear off after a while. If you've got a cutting board that was oiled with like mineral oil or whatever, you know that you have to kind of keep putting oil on those periodically over time, because the oil does, I don't know that it evaporates, but it does go away. And so you need to refresh that. But that's the nice thing about using an oil finish is it's not like a poly or something like that where you have to sand it off and then respray, and you just wipe on some more and it's done. So that is what we're looking at. This handle, I am just super excited to see that with some oil on it. I think that is going to be fantastic. So anyway, we're going to work on that today. What else did I use yesterday? Oh, I did a lot of finishing yesterday. So I was completing the staining. Get off of there. Get off of there. I finished staining the last of the bases. So this is just the plain cherry base. So I stained this. Staining takes a long time. You got to get in all the little corners and all these little places where it's really hard to get your hand in to wipe stain out and stuff like that. Even though it's an interior space and it's not as important as the outside, I mean, I do like to make it look nice. I've seen some people that do finishes and they just kind of completely ignore the bottom or the inside. I mean, I do the bottom as well. It just doesn't make sense for me not to. It's like an unfinished piece if you don't do the bottom. So anyway, I finished staining that. And I was also throwing down some lacquer yesterday. So this piece right here, this is the last of my 301 bases that needed to get lacquered. I had some lacquer screw up on the side where it actually was too much and it had these like drip marks. And I ended up having to sand off this entire side, restain it, and then lacquer it again. So I did that to both sides. But now that it's been done, it's much prettier. And so this is complete. And I'm just going to let the lacquer cure up and then it'll be ready to sell. The thing about lacquer, I think lacquer actually, and I saw a report about this or something online, lacquer actually takes like a month to fully cure. Now, like you can handle lacquer like 20 minutes after you sprayed it. You can handle it and you won't damage it. But I think for it to fully cure, it takes like a month. So I try to be careful with my lacquer after I sprayed it. I don't want to dent it or anything else, but for it to fully harden, I think it takes quite a while, which is why I don't list them right away. When I get them sprayed, I don't take photos and list them. I usually let them sit for about a week. So a week is enough to provide enough hardness that to me, that's a good time from the time I spray to the time that they can be handled, photographed, and then more importantly, wrapped up and shipped, because that's really what I want to protect against is any issues with that lacquer. Like I bubble wrap all of my stuff to protect it during shipping. It's bubble wrapped and then boxed, and I do a really nice job on my shipping, but I don't want like the plastic to interact with the lacquer or anything else. So I want to make sure that lacquer is not going to like stick to the plastic wrap and stuff. So usually a week is plenty of time for that to harden enough to not interact with my packing materials and such, and make sure that the client, the customer gets, you know, something that looks really great. And typically this isn't a handling kind of thing. So when they take it home, they're going to set it on a table and it'll, you know, over the next couple of weeks, it'll continue to harden to the point where it's just a really great finish. I do love lacquer, semi-gloss, not glossy, but semi-gloss lacquer. I do love it. It's nice. It's a joy to spray. It dissolves into itself, so you don't have to do as much sanding as you do on like if you do a poly finish. Every poly finish you have to sand in between coats and such. With lacquer, I only really sand after like the 4th or 5th coat, and that's just to remove any dust nibs or whatever, and it smooths the wood out. Then I spray like another top coat on top of that, and then it's nice and soft and smooth. And so and lacquer has solvents in it, so it melts into the layer below, And that's why you don't have to sand between each one, which is really nice. And if you do sand, you don't even have to wipe the dust off because all it is lacquer dust. And so when you spray again, that lacquer dust just dissolves and becomes part of the finish. So lacquer is a pretty cool thing. It's not necessarily the easiest to work with, but I find the benefits of lacquer to be really good. What else is going on? Yeah, I did a lot of finishing yesterday. Did that, sprayed lacquer, finished staining. What else did I do? Oh, and I cut pieces. So Wednesday, I talked about I had a Franken base that I needed to make. So I had a base, what is over here, that had the dimensions on it. I don't know. I must have been in an alternate universe that day. So when I cut this thing, ooh, this sawdusting all over me. Basically, when I made this base, I totally screwed up the dimensions on it, and it was not going to be usable, and I was trying to effect a fix on it, and that kind of screwed it up even more, because, you know, it happens. So anyway, that's what this was a base. Let's set it over here. But I hate just saying, well, lost cause, throw the wood away, because well, that's wasteful. So what I did was I salvaged out, I think we did this on the stream, is I salvaged out the two side pieces right here because they've already had the handles cut in them. And you can see that those are handles, and I cut those handles with my CNC machine. So these were already CNC cut and they were glued into that other base. So I basically surgically extracted them from the base. And what we're going to do with them is we're going to create another base like this. This is a 301. So you can see it's a little bit thinner. Like here's, let me show you regular. So this is a full-size base. You can see this one's thinner. It's also, well, it's about the same size, but you can see the top is very different in that it has this little lid, but it's basically just a big open box with a route, and it fits a specific type of machine called a 301. Well, I just happen to have, after doing all of my other projects, I happen to have some leftover hickory here, because this is hickory, which pain in the butt, but I'm not going to get into that again. So anyway, had that hickory. I had this piece of hickory right here, it was a single hickory board that was long enough for me to get two sides out. So we're going to basically make one of those 301 bases. So yesterday what I did was I did some CNC work on here, because when I make the 301 bases, there's a notch that that gets cut into the bases. Let me show you. Come over here. So there's a notch. Get the finished one here. Right here. So you can see these two notches. There's one right here and one right here. And those notches are for a hinge. So the bed on this machine can tip up and then go down, but there's the hinge needs some extra space. So in order to get that in the right position, I CNC that. And so I have a file that I keep, so when I need to make these, I just make it with the CNC. Oh, let me go back here and show you. So anyway, I cut those out so you can see the notches in there. And if I open these up like this, you can see the notches. So there's the notch right there. This one has a notch as well. And then the other thing I decided to do was like, well, let's do something creative on the front, since this is different and I don't know how well this hickory is going to look in here. So what I did was a carving right here. I did a little 301 carving on there. So whoever gets this, it'll say 301. They can display their machine. It'll look really cool. So I did that yesterday, which was nice. And got that all carved on the CNC. I also made the lid out of another piece that I had sitting around here. So this also hickory. This is also a CNC carve, and I have the pattern on, once again, patterns on the computer. So once I get the piece of wood figured out, I can use this. This fits in the front. So this particular base accommodates two different size 301 machines. There's called a short bed and a long bed. So for the long bed actually fits the entirety of this, and you don't need that little lid. If you have the short bed, well, it has a shorter bed, so at the front of it, you basically have this little insert that kind of accommodates for that shorter bed, so it covers up that space. So it kind of gives you a little storage under there. So that it's kind of a cool thing that I came up with, and I haven't seen anybody else do it. So I'm going to claim it as mine. But anyway, so that's what I did was I carved that. I carved the little 301 thing in the front. Thought that was kind of cool. And we'll see what comes of it. Today, as we finish up on this, what we're going to do is some joinery on this to get this assembled, because we need to cut some rabbets into the ends here. So we're going to cut about a half-inch deep rabbet that is this wide to accommodate gluing these in. So we'll basically turn these 4 pieces of wood into a box. So we'll get those cut out. I'll do that on the table saw. I cut the rabbets on the table saw and for the joinery. And then we'll get it in some glue and clamps, and then next week we'll be ready to do some routing. These are not overly complicated. Do I have any plywood over there that might fit? I think I have a piece of plywood that I actually can fit for a bottom on these too. So that would be really nice. And then I've got basically just a nice recovery from my screw up, and that will make me feel really good. If I can recover from my screw up, I will feel good and get a usable base and not just some bodged together, you know, kind of garbage thing, just something that looks really nice. So something that came out of that screw up, but is in its own way really pretty and useful and everything else. So yeah, so that's kind of what I did yesterday. Did some CNC work, did some staining, did some finishing, and it was a busy day. So let's see, what else? Oh, so while I'm talking here, so the other thing I was looking at, I kind of got interested in, and I've kind of looked at this before, is laser engravers. So I've been looking at, for a little while now, adding a laser engraver to my tool repertoire. I don't know if anybody out there has any experience with laser engravers. Do I have my mouse on here? I do. But anyway, I've been looking at getting a laser engraver and adding that to, not necessarily in my shop because it would be too large to be in my shop. Probably in my basement is where I would put it. And for those of you who are unawares, basically laser engraver, there's a couple of different flavors, but I would be looking at what's called a CO2 laser. And they come in various wattages from like really low watts, like 30 watts, up to, you can get them up to over 100 watts, and those are more industrial size machines. I'm looking at somewhere between 50 to 70 watts, which has plenty of power. You can cut through 1/4-inch boards with a laser that's that strong, and it gives you a lot of flexibility in how you can use it. But the other consideration is size. So they come from very small sizes to, you know, much larger, to the industrial size of this table size. And what I'm looking at is something where I can do maybe 20 to 24 inches of width, because I would like to be able to stick one of my boards in like this, the face of this, and maybe do some engraving on the front with the laser instead of using the CNC for that operation. That would be really nice if I could do things like that. So I want something that will accommodate the projects that I work with now. Like I could set this up and do engraving on here. You know, it gives you a lot of flexibility to do a lot of different things. So that's one of the things I've been looking at is, okay, well, let me check out some lasers. Now here's the thing. They come in all shapes and sizes, and you can buy eBay lasers that come from China that cost you know, maybe $1,500, and you can spend $20,000. The size and options, and it's not like saying, I want a table saw, what should I get? There's a lot of different table saws, but usually your quality and everything else kind of changes over time. So lasers are one of those things where there's just a ton of them. But let me show you. I'll show you kind of what I've been looking at. I think I have it here. So let me go here. And I'm going to switch to the page so I can actually see it. So this is one, I'm kind of settling on this one right now. It's actually through Amazon. You can buy it through other resellers. You can buy it directly from the company. Actually, this is one of the best options here was through Amazon, but you can buy from the company. Now, I say that. This is a Chinese laser, if you will. That's where most all of them come from. If you buy a US laser, which would be like Trotec or Universal, I think there's probably another one in there somewhere. Those are, now you're looking at 5 figures for a laser. I don't have that. So we're gonna go this option. And there's a couple of others on there, so I'll show you what I'm looking at. But this is called an OMTEC or OMTEC. It actually stands for something else, I can't remember what it is. But this is a 55 watt CO2 laser. It has a 16 by 24 inch work bed. So that work bed, 16 by 24, it's pretty good, right? I think that is more than ample for what I want. It has pass-throughs. So if you do have a board that is longer, as long as it fits through the pass-through, you can, so you see the little thin, where it says OMTEC, if you see the little thin place underneath there, that's a pass-through. So you can actually pass material through there. It has pass-throughs on the side as well. So here's the side view. And so that big part on the side opens up. You can pass material through there, I think. Pretty sure. But anyway, a nice lid that you can close on there. It actually has a controller board that is compatible with Lightburn software, which is good because Lightburn software, from everything that I've found, is really, really good to work with. This actually has a built-in air pump. So the air pump is really important because it blows air across the face of the laser where it's burning to clear debris and smoke away from the actual engraving point, which gives you cleaner cuts. So yeah, you can see there's material being passed through. So you can see that's the pass through right there, front and rear. So that's pretty nice. Like if you wanted to do a countertop or something, you could pass it through and do engraving on that. So that's kind of cool, right? And then you can burn all kinds of different stuff: plastics, wood, glass, leather, stone, rubber, cupcakes, whatever. You can do lots of different things with the laser. So this is one that I'm looking at. The important thing is, if you look over here, the price on this is like $25.99. So for $2,600, I could get up and running with, would it be maybe the best laser in the world? Probably not. But it's an entry point, and it's one of those things where you kind of have to jump in at some point if you're going to do this. There are actually lasers that you can attach, like I could attach a laser to my CNC, but they're really low wattage. I think J-Tech makes some or whatever that you can use to do carving, but they're super low watt, and they take forever to do their job and everything else. So I'm looking at something like this. Now, there are some others that I've looked at. So this is from Boss. So Boss Laser, they have a lot of different options that you can put on here. This is their machine. Kind of looks similar. It's a little bigger looking, but honestly, from the interior kind of stuff, it looks like the same, right? It doesn't look that different. Honeycomb inside, stuff like that. It does have pass-through, so you can see there's an opening on here that you can pass material through. Let's see what else we got on here. If you get a bigger laser, it adds on. So this is where the laser tube is, that extension up top. If you get the bigger laser options, you have to add on some space in the back. But anyway, this is material being passed through. So this has side and front and back pass-throughs. That's kind of an interesting option as well. So four-way material pass-through, kind of nice. You have to do, there's lots of different options here. This is basically, I'm trying to see the size on this thing, is actually kind of small. It's like, what is that, like 16 by 14, basically. Your work area is 15.75 by 1375. You can upgrade this to a 14 by 20 workspace. So I would opt for the 14 by 20. Right now, they have a free upgrade to a 70 watt laser. This is normally a 50 watt, but you can upgrade free to a 70 watt laser. The higher the laser output, the more efficient and faster the burns are. It's just more powerful, right? More power means more better. Problem with this one is all decked out with the options and everything that I would want. This would be $56.41. So basically double the price of the other one with about the same spec. Except this one has a more powerful laser. It's 70 watts, the other one is 55. This one is it's a Chinese-made laser, but it's a US-based company. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. And then basically you've got what most people think of as the industry standard for laser stuff. This is what a lot of people have been looking at and thinking of is the Glowforge, right? So Glowforge kind of brought this whole thing to people's living rooms, kitchens, craft rooms, or whatever, because it's a desktop. It's just basically a desktop. It's like a large scanner or something along those lines. This was originally a Kickstarter, like, I don't know, 5 years ago. It was super popular, and they've done really well. And you'll see a lot of makers and YouTubers and things like that have Glowforges. Glowforge put a lot of these out in the communities, and hey, show off our stuff. So you'll see a lot of these in people's makerspaces. They have their own proprietary software. That's the other thing. The Boss laser and the Omtech use something called Lightburn, which is a really, really nice, pretty easy to get into software for doing your laser cuts and such. This uses its own proprietary web-based software, which web-based throws a lot of people off because they don't like that necessarily. I don't mind it. My CNC machine is web-based and I never have an issue with it. So I guess unless my internet's down, I couldn't use it, but that almost never happens where I live. So. But anyway, Glowforge, they have 3 different models. There's a basic, their Plus, and their Pro. The Pro actually has pass-through, so it does have a front pass-through. It's a lot more limiting in the size. It's limiting in the depth of the thickness of the materials and things like that. What it does have is a freaking price tag that is like crazy. So let's look at our buying options here for this. So I think the basic is $29.95. So the basic for this is more than the Omtech, which has more power and larger workspace and blah, blah, blah. Now this does have a camera over top, so you can actually see your material and do alignment and stuff like that, but I think over time that would become less important. So they run all the way up to almost $6 grand for their Pro version. So you can see for what you're getting and price-wise, that's kind of why I was going towards that Omtech. I think the last one I've got in here, this is from Full Spectrum Laser. Full Spectrum is another company that's kind of big in the laser space, especially from the hobbyist standpoint. And so they have their Full Spectrum, this is called a Muse. And so you can see this one very similar in size and shape to the Glowforge. So it looks very similar. This one costs less. I don't know what the actual size is, and it's so far away I can't really see it. But anyway, you can see, you know, just from looking at this in comparison to how big the guy is, you know, a lot of options. It does have the camera up top, so you can do the whole visual thing. I think it also runs on its own software. So anyway, So that's kind of what I've been looking at in terms of, you know, adding things. And right now I'm just at the research point, but the more I look at my needs, the more the Omtech one here just kind of like is ticking all the boxes for me. And like I said, I would probably put this in my basement, and you need to have ventilation when you run a laser, because if you're cutting certain materials, the gases that, like if you're cutting plastics, it creates gases, and those gases are toxic. So you have to vent this thing outside. So I could vent this. I've got a window down in my basement. I could vent this out the window. You need water chillers, because that's the other thing too that they don't really tell you about. But you really, to get the best light out of your laser, you need to have a chiller for these things. And so I would probably pair this with something like this, which is an industrial chiller. I think this one holds like 9 liters of water, and it basically just cools the water and pumps it through the laser tube and cools it off. So for, you know, a few $100s, you're getting your cool water, you're extending the life of your laser, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, like I said, entry point into the laser world, for me, this is actually a good option. And it actually includes the Lightburn software and all this other stuff. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. I might be working towards that. There are 3, we can get out of here. Let me go back to the webpage. There we go. So there are 3 tools that I want to upgrade in my shop over time. There's actually more than that, but 3 that I would probably address first. One is the table saw, and not that I don't love my table saw, it's just that I've kind of reached the capability ceiling of my table saw. It's a little underpowered from what I need. I would like to work up to a 3 horsepower version, maybe a like a cabinet saw that I could still use my router in. I could still put a router table in the end of it. I was looking at Laguna, the Fusion. They make one that's called like the F2 version, which is really nice. It looks fantastic, but after digging in and doing research, and I got to tell you folks, you got to do your research. I've started looking and found some reviews and such, and it turns out Laguna, while they make a really nice project, their customer service is garbage. And I've encountered this in so many forums and in so many reviews and everything else. Their customer service is complete garbage. And I don't want to work. I would rather work with a company that makes a so-so product but has great customer service, because at least they will help you to maintain your item. If you buy something that is great, but then you have a problem with it and you can't get a bolt or a thing for 6 months and you're dead in the water, why would you do that? So anyway, and that's as far as the table saws go. So I was looking at the Fusion. It's actually a nice in-between between like something like this and something like a SawStop, which is upper end of the spectrum, right? So I'm working like right in here. The Fusion kind of sat in the middle there, but after all the stuff I read about their customer service being garbage and everything else, I don't want to deal with that, because honestly, I just want a tool that works. And if it doesn't, I want a company that stands behind their stuff and is going to basically be standing behind their product. So that kind of leaves me in a lurch for products. I could go with something like Jet, Powermatic. I mean, that's big bucks. So I'm leaning towards SawStop. And I know everybody's like, oh, SawStop, blah, blah, blah. I'm leaning towards SawStop because of, you know, feature sets and everything else, but they also, from everything I read, you know, they have dealers everywhere. They've got customer service that is through the roof. They make a good, reliable product. So, you know, you add up all the positives and they outweigh the high price. And you know what they say, you get what you pay for. So anyway, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at a 3 power or cabinet saw. I would also have to add a 220 outlet into my shop here because I do not have one right now, and it requires 220 power for a 3-horse motor. And you're usually kind of capped at, it's actually 240, but whatever. You're usually capped on your horsepower at about 1.75 horsepower is about the most you're going to get out of a 120 outlet. Anything above that, and you're going to need to be running a 240 outlet. So yeah, so I'll have to run that, you know, run an outlet and stuff, which electrical makes me scary. So, you know, anyway. So table saw is one I want to update. Bandsaw, I really need to update my bandsaw. My bandsaw is okay, and it's great for casual woodworking, whatever, but it's not, I need something that is more professional. I need more resaw height. I think right now I have like 7 inches of resaw in there. This is a Craftsman. It's not bad. It's kind of like a unibody construction or whatever. It's not bad, but I need better. Now that I might actually buy a Laguna, because everything I've found everywhere says the Laguna bandsaws are bulletproof. They're just super, super, super good. So I might go Laguna for the bandsaw because, like I said, and I have dealers, like a local dealer like Woodcraft. If I bought it from the Woodcraft store, well, if something went wrong, I'd go back to Woodcraft and go, hey, there's an issue, and Woodcraft would take care of me because Woodcraft is really good. But I would like to do the bandsaw. The other thing is I'd like to add the laser. So those are kind of like my big 3. I would love a new joiner. At one point in time, I was looking at a joiner planer combo from Grizzly. They got rid of it. I don't know why. But anyway, that kind of took that off the table because that was like $3 grand. But that was really doable because I could eliminate 2 machines by making 1 machine purchase. But that's not an option now. So anyway, that's what I'm looking at. Table saw, bandsaw, laser. The laser might be achievable. I'd rather add the tool and have a capability than replace this and still have the same capabilities I have. So it would be nice if I actually added that capability, added my repertoire of things I could do and ways of making money, and then I could take the additional revenue maybe that I could create from the laser engraver and then put that into one of the other tools to replace. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought I'd share, because that's kind of what I was thinking of is, you know, getting that laser engraver would be really cool. And I've been thinking about it for a couple of years now. In the place where I used to work, there was a shop, and they had like Universals and Trotex, and they had the really, really nice stuff. But the stuff you can do, here's the thing, those allow you to have a huge footprint and do maybe more materials. But the actual act of laser engraving on stuff is really the same from machine to machine. So if like I was making, I don't know, coasters, right? Well, the laser engraving on the coasters, it doesn't matter if you're using a $50,000 machine or a $5,000 machine, the laser engraving, you know, would be the same. You might could do it a lot faster with a $50,000 machine, but your end product would probably look exactly the same. So it's just like my CNC. I could spend a lot more money on another CNC machine and have, you know, more product, faster work and all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, is it going to look any better than what I'm doing now? Probably not. More capability, but the end product would probably be the same. So, and I love my CNC. It fits perfect in my shop, and I don't have room for a bigger CNC. So, and I'm not moving into a bigger shop anytime soon, ever. So anyway, coffee's almost done. Ooh, coffee is done. Ooh, it got cold there at the end. It's still, well, it's mostly windy now. It's not really raining, so that's a good thing. What do we need to do? We need to move on and get this done. So how should I cut this off? Should I flush trim or should I bandsaw? I'll tell you what, I'm gonna put this in my vise right here. I got my table vise, not the same as Edelweiss. And why is this not moving? Oh, hang on, it's a little jammed up over here. There we go. And if I put this in the table vise right here, right there, and we will lock this in place. I need to update my table vise here. I need to change it, and I'm going to put a different method of keeping this from getting skewed. Anyway, let me get my flush trim saw right here, and we will flush trim this. Now, the only thing you got to be careful when you use flush trim saws. They should be made so that the blades, like when you drag this across something, it should not scar your wood. A lot of saws have skewed teeth, so the teeth kind of skew like this. And if you drag a saw across a tabletop, it'll scratch it because the teeth are skewed outwards, right? A flush trim saw has aggressive teeth, but it should not leave any marks while moving across your material. Some people will do things like put a card down, like a credit card or something. So like I have this gift card right here, right? So they might put this down underneath there, and that raises the blade up just a tiny bit and keeps you from scratching. So that's what some people will do, is they'll put a card underneath their saw just to keep from scratching the material. If you do it right and you keep your saw flush, it should not impact your stuff, and it should not leave any scratches. It might leave some scuff marks just because you're rubbing a piece of metal back and forth across, but that should not, that should come out with some sanding. So the big thing is you don't want to turn your saw up to where you're tipping that blade into your material. You just want to go flush as possible, and that's what we're doing here. And I'm just rocking this back and forth. So the nice thing about this is it's like kind of like a little Japanese pull saw. So it cuts on the pull instead of the push, like American saws cut on the push, which I'm not a big fan, or Western saws, I guess you could call them Western saws. So I like the fact that it cuts on the pull because you have, in my opinion, there's more leverage. Okay, this little piece is off. There we go. I just think you get more leverage on the pull. I could be wrong. Feel free to add your commentary to the chat, but I just feel like I get more leverage on the pull, and I like to work it back and forth. Another piece out. 2 more to go. That looks really nice. And we're going to sand this up and make it look really nice when we're done. Piece right there. And we've got this last piece of maple right here. You don't have to be super aggressive, just let the teeth do the work, and you'll get a much cleaner cut. Now that I need to clean it off a little bit, like with a hand plane. All right, so let me grab my hand plane. Let me just throw these little scraps in the thing here. Just grab this. This is all ingrained, so it's not the easiest stuff to cut. Pretty good on my, come back here. Okay. There we go. Come on. Nice. That looks lovely. Just a lovely. All right. So here's what we're working. that look nice? Now it needs to be cleaned up, it needs to be sanded, and we will do that. In fact, that's what we're gonna do next. I know everybody loves to watch sanding, right? But honestly, it's kind of just part of the process. So let's see how we want to do this. I'm gonna get the big sander. And do I have that screwdriver over here? Need my screwdriver to change my dust collection. Whew, man, it's windy out there. It is windy and rainy and gross. What's up with the weather today? I think this is like leftovers from that that bomb front thing that came through California and the West Coast. I think this is leftover from that, so it is definitely made its way east. All right, let's get the big Bosch out here because it is definitely going to give us better results here. I need to loosen this a little bit more. And I'm just putting my dust collection hose on here. I've got a hose clamp on here because I just find that it holds on better. I got this hose from Rockler. It's just a small hose. It's seen better days. I probably should buy a new one, but I just kind of keep fixing it and it kind of works. And I use hose clamps, and the hose clamps like hold it on really well. So I'm kind of like, well, why should I spend the money when it still works? I think it's like $35 to $40 for the hose, but it's basically a small tool hose, and it hooks into my larger dust collection hose from my shop vac, which actually my dust deputy on my shop vac. So, all right, what grit do we have on here? It's a 240. That is not what we want. I think we could probably start with like an 80 grit on here. Something with a little bit more oomph to it. This is a 150, which is dead. All right, I'm gonna go over to my grits and grab me like an 80. 20, that should be an 80 right here. I'll actually grab a 120 while I'm here. And maybe a 150 while I'm here. All right, so I've got some grits here. And I'm basically just working on the head. The handle is already pretty good, so I'm not worried about that. Here. All right, I'll tell you one thing I need to do before I get into this. Just want to go, I need to run inside for just a moment. So if you all give me just a second, I will be right back, and we'll get into this. Okay, we are back, and I'm gonna put my ears on, and then I'm gonna sand this up. And yeah, let's get some sanding done here. Oops, you know what would be helpful? I always find that my tools work better when I actually put power to them. I know it's a weird thing, right? Like, wow. It's such a kind of a future type concept to use electricity But let's give it a shot and see if it works. Okay. Okay. That sanded up really easily. I mean, I've got 80 grit on here, and that's not a big deal. So where I'm probably anticipating the most issues is these end grain sections. I don't think they'll be quite as easy to knock down. Let me see something here. I had a piece of wood that was, yeah. All right, hang on a second. There we go. That's tight. The one thing I want to do with this is do a little hand sanding on the edges here because it's 120. Probably could do it with 120. It's hard to keep this sander kind of on the angle here. I've got this 45 chamfer that I did, and I just want to run this through and keep these chamfers nice and straight. So I'm just going to hit them with a flat piece of wood, and that'll hopefully, and I can kind of feel where the chamfer is and keep that nice and flat and straight, and don't let it tip. Not easy to do all the time. But like I said, it's easier than trying to get the saw tipped in the right orientation, or not the saw, the sander tipped in the right orientation. It's a big sander. So this is a little easier for me to just hand sand this, and just keep these tipped to my 45. And then work on these ends. I like the chamfer. The chamfer turned out really nice. It looks really good. I just want to make sure that it doesn't get rounded too much. I want to keep it straight. But it needs to get sanded as well. See how it was getting rounded over just a little bit. And it's in grain, which is hard to... There we go. So that looks really nice. Let me hit this one right here again. So this is 120 that I'm using right here. This is not the 80. All right, so we got the top done. The only thing left to do really is the underside, which is really hard to do, and I'm just going to hand sand this just because it would be too hard to get a sander in there. I'm just going to do some hand sanding on the inside here just to make sure that I've got this all done on the inside. And it's the underside of the hammer, or the mallet. So, you know, if it doesn't look spectacular, it's okay. But it's long grain, so it does sand pretty easily. There we go. Okay. And let me clean that up with the little dust collection here. Okay, so I pulled over some other, thought I did. There they are. So I'm going to go ahead and put on a 150. That was an 80. I thought I had a 120. Did I pull a 120 over here? I guess I did not. Let me grab a 120. I thought I did. There we go. And just kind of go through my grits here so that I can get a decent finish on this. And even though, you know, I could probably skip grits and it would be okay, honestly, it's really in your best interest when you're doing this kind of stuff to not skip the grits. I'm going to start with this side right here. I'm going to put the pencil mark on here just so I can see that I've got everything evenly sanded here. But anyway, you're just better off not skipping your grits because each grit is doing a job. All right. The nice thing is that if you go through your grits, you're probably going to spend less time sanding in general because it gets more efficient as you go. With each grit, you're having to work less because you've already cleared off so much of the scratches before. So you're clearing less. You don't have to work as long to clear those deep scratches out. You're kind of cutting them in half each time with each grit, and it is actually more efficient than using, jumping 2 or 3 grits. You can see it didn't take me very long to clean that off. And that's going to be hopefully the case for all of these sides. Let me find my pencil. Oh, there it is. Now the end grain might take a little bit longer just because it's end grain, but that's okay. Work longer on the end grain. It'll pay benefits in the end. Okay, doing pretty good here. I've got working these chamfers just a little bit here. Just to make sure I'm maintaining that chamfer, especially across the top. It just looks nicer that way. Like I said, a nice flat block is probably the easiest way to do it. Okay, I think we've got that covered with the 120. I've already done underneath with the 120. We did the sides. So we can move on to a 150. And we're getting a lot of dust and debris out of these things. I'd like to get some other paper that actually has more. There's some other paper I found from Klingspor that actually has better dust collection ports. Like this has 6 holes in it, which covers these holes, but there's actually paper that you can get that actually has more holes and allows for more dust collection. And honestly, the more dust collection you are able to use while sanding, the better your finish is going to look, because you're cleaning that dust out, which is keeping that dust from interfering with the grit doing its job. So you want to be sure that you are getting the most value from your paper. I'll do those bottom parts later. So let me start with this up top, and then we'll just work our way around with the 150. Okay. What is this? 220. And this is, what is this one? 150. So I'm going to just kind of work this 150 here. This is what we just finished with. Just try to get these corners all cleaned up. Nice. And then I'm going to put this 150 on my little block here. Try to keep this flat. And get these chamfers to be nice and neat. I probably should redo the chamfers because they have gotten a little flattened in areas and a little rounded in areas. It's just hard to keep them that way when you're using a sander. And I think what I should have done was chamfered after the fact. Probably would have been smarter, but is what it is. Okay, that looks good up top. This face actually looks really nice. Okay, I'm going to do the underside here really quick, just because I've got the 150 paper out here. So we'll do the underside. And maybe if I can get this from slipping. And over here. And on this side. Okay. The last thing we can do is hit this with some 220 and make it look nice that way. I don't know if I would use the big one. I'm probably going to use my smaller sander for this, just because it's easier to maneuver around as opposed to, I mean, this does really great, especially with large surfaces and such, but dealing with smaller surface area, a little bit harder to do with this. So we'll stick this on here and tighten my clamp back down here. Like I said, the hose clamp just keeps it from slipping off. That's kind of a handy little thing to have on there. And then I need, what do I want to put on here? Something 220-ish maybe? What is this? That's a 320. Let's do 220. 220, where are you? I've got some in here. 150. 220, here we go. All right, and this is just basically just doing some finish sanding now. And then I will also hit the handle. Make sure I get any of the little bits of wood and debris out of here so this lays nice and flat. But I will also do the handle with the 220 and get that all cleaned up. All right, put a little power to this thing and we will be good to go. Last thing I'm going to do, I've got some, I think this is 320 on here. That's 220. I've got a 320 around here somewhere. I think this is it right here. And it's pretty worn down. I'm going to clean it off, and then I'm going to use it on my hand sanding block here, this little foam pad. Just going to clean out the grits, and I'm just going to work this across here just to kind of give it a little bit more polish on that sanding job. You just find the 320 just kind of is the icing on the cake for this stuff. And it looks really nice. It doesn't really take off a lot of material, but which you don't want at this point. You just want to clean up and smooth the edges and That's what we're after. That looks really nice. This one. Hey, I think we're in good shape here. I'm just going to hit the bottom really quick. Just to, like I said, it doesn't, it's the bottom. So we don't really care too much aesthetically what it looks like, but we want it to kind of match the rest of it. So, all right, now I'm just going to do some hand sanding on this handle here, just kind of smooth out any corners. Just kind of round over things. And then we will clean this whole thing up, and we will, there we go. So I'm going to clean the whole thing up, and then we will put some finish on it. To clean this up, I'm going to use my go-to, which is naphtha. I know a lot of people use mineral spirits. I'm not a big fan of mineral spirits. I have some. I'm just not a big fan of it because it takes too long to dry. The mineral spirits usually take about a half an hour to completely dry to the point where you can do whatever it is you want to do. Naphtha, on the other hand, is just a matter of minutes. So I'm going to clean the handle here. Oh, that's going to look so gorgeous once we put finish on it. But right now, I'm just getting all the dust off of here that will interfere with the way this is going to look. Here, I'll show you a close-up what we've got going on here. So I'm just cleaning off any of the dust off of this thing. And it's also nice because the naphtha kind of just gives you a preview. Like, look at the handle and such. Oh, that's going to look so cool. Look at that. So the naphtha gives you a little preview of what things are going to look like. There's the top. Once you put oil on there, I can't finish the sentence. It'll give you a preview once you're going to put the oil on. I've got some marks on here. I need to clean those marks off of here. All right, hang on a second. I got a couple of marks that I want to get rid of on here. That's the other thing about doing this is you actually enable yourself to see any imperfections in your sanding, which is why you should always hit it with at least, like I said, mineral spirits or something, so that you can see imperfections in your sanding that then you can then go and try to fix. Now this is, why I got a mark on there that I don't know what that is. I don't know what that mark is on there. But anyway, we're gonna see if we can't get that smoothed out a little bit. Now, this is a mallet. It's gonna hit things. It's gonna get marked up. But I think the goal here is to start off not doing that. So as you can see, the wood kind of dries out. So it's pretty much like there's the side I've already done. If I flip it, you can see I did this side. So it's starting to dry. The end grain obviously will take longer to dry. And there's that top looking really nice. The handle looks great. So we're going to set this aside for just a couple of minutes and let this dry. And while it's doing that, I need to kind of rearrange some stuff in my shop because I have bases sitting all over the place. And I need to move these so that I can have room to work. I've got a whole bunch of these things stacked up over here. And I'm just going to continue to stack them and get them out of the way. Actually, this, I'm going to set this inside because it's done. It needs to go down to my basement. So I have little pyramids in my basement that I have set up in order to let my stuff that's been lacquered, and they will continue to dry in my basement, which is like, it's not like the most dry spot, but it's not too bad. It's not too moist down there. in terms of basements. But I have a whole bunch of stuff here that needs to be finished. What I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bases that need to get lacquer sprayed. I'm going to try to get that done over the next few days because next week the temperatures are supposed to be much, much lower. I think it's only supposed to be in the 50s next week. And honestly, I don't like spraying lacquer below like 65 degrees. So pretty much between like 65 and 85 degrees are my temperature range for spraying lacquer, or the temperature range that actually I like for spraying lacquer. And applying any finish really, or stain. And if you look at the stain, I think it says 60 to 80 degrees is the optimum temperature range for staining stuff. So, so this, just to show you, I make little things for my stuff to sit on. This is a piece of scrap plywood. You can see I ran 4 screws through here, so you can see the screws. And they work great. They're just little kind of pan head screws. But this works great as something when you stain your stuff, if you want to set it off to the side and you don't want to set a freshly stained bottom on top of a table or something. Instead of doing painter's pyramids, I just use 4 screws and a piece of scrap plywood, and it turns out pretty well. Let's see. So while we're waiting, what I'm doing is let's see here. Switch camera. I'm just setting up the table saw for moving on to the other project once I get past the handle thing. But what I need to do is set up my table so that I can make my joints, because I'm going to have to basically cut dados in here. Not dados, but what am I calling it? Rabbets on these sides. So I need to set this saw up to be a 1/2 inch deep, because they need to be 1/2 inch. These are 3/4 inch thick boards. They need to have a 1/2 inch rabbet cut in them. And I am looking for, oh, there it is. It was over here. Looking for my little tool here, which allows me to check my depth. So I've got my my Craig Market tool, and I'm going to set this to 1/2 inch. And I can actually verify that by using my calipers. Set my caliper to 1/2 inch. I can try to be really, there you go. So that's, I don't know if you can see that, but that says 0.5. And I can check that here to make sure that I'm getting exactly 1/2 inch. And then what I will do is get a scrap piece of wood after I set my depth on my table saw here. I'll get a scrap piece of wood and make some test cuts just to make sure that the depth that I'm getting is actually the depth that I want. That's a little high. A little high. So where the teeth impact it, I think that's about right. So I'll make some test cuts, and then I'll check the depth with my market gauge just to make sure that I'm getting the exact depth of cut that I want. And we'll use this one. Doesn't have to be fancy. Now, one thing I would like to do is find a piece of wood that I can replace my my push miter with. See, you can see I've got this piece of wood here. I don't know how straight this is. I need to see if this is a straight piece of wood. If it's straight, I'm fine with that. But it's kind of gnarly and gross up top here. But I needed a quick piece because I cut my other one in half the other day doing my my mallet, which was not good. Let me get my straight edge and see if this is straight. Well, that's actually really straight. Well, I say that, it actually tails off. So right down here, That's not straight. And that is not useful because I need a straight piece of wood to push work through and to make sure that it's not going to be at a weird kind of angle. So I'm looking in my scrap stuff here for a piece of wood that I can replace that board with. I don't know if I have a large enough board here. I'm looking for something that's already been milled up that would work. And it needs to kind of be tall enough to work too. I mean, these aren't really that big, but I don't want to cut it in half either. So let me check. I think I have a piece of oak up here. And I'm just going to check flatness. Not bad, but it's not perfectly flat. That's pretty flat right there. That's pretty flat. So I've got a large oak board right here, and this is pretty darn flat. So what I will do is use this. I'll take this off, and we will put a new board on there so that I can have an accurate miter when I push this thing through. So let me grab my, actually I probably need my drill because I need to put a little guide hole in here. All right. So I'm going to remove this one off of here. That's probably the first thing I'm going to do is, I don't know why I picked that up. I needed to pick this up. Same color. I need to get my little bit here. I've got a square bit screw in there. And so I need to remove those and take this out. All right. Let's, probably easier if I put it in the table, right? There we go. Let's set it up on here, now I can get to it. There we go, there's one screw. And let me get the other one out. Other one. Okay. Now what I need to do is figure out where I need to drill some holes, how much I want this to overlap. So as I've got this on here, basically what I like to do is leave a couple of inches over on this side of the blade so that it cuts through. It does a couple things. It gives me an exact idea of where my blade is going to cut. So when I'm pushing something through, I know where that cut mark is going to intersect and I can line up my boards on there. So that's helpful. The other thing is it allows me a little bit of overhang here so I can push things through and have equal pushing on this side so that it pushes the piece past the blade equally on both sides of the blade. And then have enough over here that I've got stability. So kind of all those things together. So what I want to do is get myself a drill bit and mark this. Let me see if I can find a drill bit here that will be useful. I think this one's useful. Maybe if I can get it out of the holder. Okay. And I'll drill that. So probably what I want to do is just mark this. So that I can put the screws in. So I'm going to drill this. Well, there we go. All right. And just so I don't crack the wood, that's really all this is for. I don't want to crack the wood. I'm going the wrong way. There we go. I need a little block underneath. You know what? I'm going to use this since I already got holes in it. I'm going to take this and drill a hole. Just a pilot hole is all I'm doing. Making a pilot hole. And there we go. Time to charge the battery. All right, that should work. Let me put my screws in on this side. Oh, the other thing I actually think I'm going to do is I'm going to run a chamfer along this edge right here. And I didn't have to drill all the way through that. I just thought of that. I just needed a pilot hole. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm going to do a little chamfer along this edge. And what that's going to do is keep dust from interfering with the board getting flush to the power ports under there. We go. Keeping the board from getting flush to the material, because you don't want that. So I'm just gonna run a nice little chamfer along the bottom edge, and that will give dust a place to go underneath the board without actually impacting how it actually contacts the board I'm pushing through, if that makes sense. Doesn't have to be huge, but you want it big enough to, like I said, keep dust from collecting underneath. So all I did was I put a chamfer right here, just a little 45, and that should keep dust from collecting underneath. And I'm going to put this screw in there just to get started, and this screw down here, get it started, push that tight. All right, let's screw these in and see how we did. It's good. It's flat on the back here, but that's exactly what I want. So basically now when I'm pushing wood through, it'll go like this, but you can see there's a nice little edge here where dust can collect underneath. Well, you can see that. There's a little shadow line there, right? Well, that's the chamfer. Dust will collect underneath, which would normally get in the way of me pushing my board flush to this. Well, because I've got that, the dust can go underneath and it won't impact it. So, actually, you know, I can make my little half-inch cut on this board right here. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to raise this blade. Well, you know what? I'm going to keep it where it is right now because I'm trying to establish, but it's going to cut through this board. So I'm going to cut a, you know what? Let me put my dust hose in. I'm going to just cut here. Normally I would make that cut a little deeper through there, but I think for right now, that's fine where it is. It'll get taller as I cut other material. Headphones. And then once I get done with this and setting up the saw height, I think the handle and everything is dry over there on the mallet, so we'll go ahead and start oiling that. All right, let's make a cut here. You can see the little notch that I've now cut in here. That lets me line things up. So if I say, okay, well, where's this going to cut? I can line that up and know exactly where it's going to impact my material. I like to have it taller. Like you can see, this one was much taller right here. But anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to check. I cut a little edge off of here, and we're going to check that and see if it's the right height. It looks like it's just a tiny bit low. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this up just a hair. We're going to recut this. And I can actually line that back up. Or I can cut a whole new one. I'll cut a whole. Yeah, we'll cut a new one right here. We just want to check it for depth. So let's do that. All right, that actually looks to be just a tiny bit deeper. I'm going to check it now. And now we are perfect. So my blade is now at a perfect half-inch height. And we can continue. What I'll do is nibble away at my other boards until I get a rabbet that will leave a 1/4 of an inch of material up top and take away a half-inch here. And then my board will fit inside there like that. All right. But that's to come. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and grab my tongue oil finish. And I'm going to get a cup because I like to work out of a cup. It's just a little easier for me. All right. And let's see, where do I want to do this? I'm going to get my little piece of cardboard that I finish on because I don't want to make a mess all over everything. I've got sandpaper and stuff everywhere, and it's going to make a mess. So let me get my piece of cardboard, and we'll come back over, not there, we'll come back over here, and gonna move my mug out of the way too. Where did I put that? Right here. I just like using cardboard to finish on top of. It just keeps my work surfaces from getting totally trashed. All right. Oh, and the other thing I can do is lower my middle part of the table down. So if you look here, this is actually raised up as a, see, it's like a planing stop, right? But if I slide this over, it all slides back down, and now, there you go. It's all good. Okay, gonna get everything out of the way here, and we will put this piece of plywood down, cardboard down, and then, yeesh, rain, 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 rain. Okay, I'm gonna put some finish in here, and then I'm gonna get some paper towels. I actually have some all ready to go. And we're just gonna wipe this stuff on. That's really all you have to do. That's kind of gross around the edge there. Throw that away. That's the kind of the varnishy stuff on here, caking up and getting in the way. All right, let me grab some paper towels over here. And these are left over from when I was doing my staining. So I've got a couple of them here. And probably need a little bit more, but that's okay. I'm gonna pour a little of this into a cup, because like I said, it's just easier to work with in a cup. It's easier to get a paper towel in there. And I'm just gonna fold this over, and we're just gonna start putting it on here and making things look wonderful. End grain stuff is going to require a lot more because it's just going to keep soaking it in. So just be prepared to put a lot more on the end grain. And just keep putting it on until it doesn't want to take any more. This looks really nice. So just to give you a sneak peek, there's the top. Looks great. Sides of the mallet. You see the end grain, you'll look, it almost looks dry. You can see where it's just sucking all that stuff in, right? Whereas you've got a lot more left on the sides because it just doesn't soak in as much. But look at the end right here. See if I can get it turned to the light a little bit more. Yeah, you can see that's already soaked all the way in. So I'm just going to keep running across these end grain areas as needed while I hit the rest of this. Now the long grain doesn't require as much, so. And we're gonna do this handle because that's really what I want to see is the handle. I did do that dark stain and then sanded it off because I really wanted to accentuate the striping, the figure in this wood. So you can see I really was able to accomplish that by using that pre-dye staining method and sanding. So you can see how my handle just kind of, you can see that tiger striping, maple, whatever you want to call it. Looks fantastic. And let me hit the end grain down here, and just basically I'm just getting the whole thing covered. This does have a little bit of an amber tint to it. So just kind of take that into consideration when you're using the tung oil finish. All right, I'm just going to really keep soaking this into the top or into the sides here where the end grain is, because it's thirsty. Super thirsty. I'm just going to slather a lot on there, let it soak in. Same with this end. But that looks really, really nice. I am happy with this. The one thing I need to do though is I don't have anything to set this on to let it dry. I think I have one of my little pyramid-y things from doing lids. So let me see if I can find one of those. And ooh, that looks gorgeous. Just gorgeous. It's nice to make things for yourself sometimes, you know. I love making stuff for other people, but every now and then, you know what, you just need to make something for yourself that that you're really proud of and happy, and you know, satisfies your own stuff. All right, let me see if I can find something to set this on and give that tung oil time to penetrate and really get in there. Let me see if I can wipe this thing off. It has a little bit of dust and fuzz on it, and I don't want to get that in there. All right. So basically what I've got is some finishing nails, some little brad nails in this board right here. You can see them poking through, but I think they are going to be large enough to do maybe that. Maybe that, come on. Can I get 3 of them on here? Dang. Dang, that's just not quite big enough. Oh, just missed. You know what though? Okay, hang on. We're not done here because I have my brad nailer right here. I'm gonna turn this sucker on and put another hole in here. I'm gonna put 2 more in here. That is the beauty of a battery-powered brad nailer. Which is why I bought this thing, because it's awesome. So now I have extra brad nails in here, but they're smaller and allow me to do this. Yay! And that will also keep the air moving underneath it so that it continues to dry from all sides. I'm just hitting these end grain areas one more time, looking for any spots that need some additional finish. Handle again, because it looks like it needs more. All right. And I'll dry my fingers off here. So basically, sand your wood, apply the stain if you want to, wipe or brush on generous amount of tung oil finish. Let sit on the wood for approximately 5 to 10 minutes, then buff evenly with a clean lint-free cloth. Wait 24 hours and apply a second coat. 2 coats are recommended. So this will get another coat tomorrow. I'm gonna let this sit for a few minutes. I'll get some towels and we will buff this thing off. But it is, I would say it is very buff already. It looks buff. It's very buff. But that being said, let's move on to some joinery here because we're already set up for this. So now what we need to do is establish where we need our cuts. I need a cut Oop, let's change cameras here. Oop, there we go. All right, I need a cut on this end and this end. That cut needs to be a specific width. We already know the depth. The depth is 1/2 inch. In order to get the width that we need, what we'll do is take this and turn it on end. We will get our end piece here. This is the piece that's going to go and fit into there. So we will take this piece and we will use that to draw our guide on here like this. And I just like to do this and then mark out the area that I'm going to cut. So you can see now, hopefully you can see that there's the area right here I'm going to cut. Now, in order to keep this going the right way, I have to flip it around, because when I go to cut this one, you don't like flip it over. You have to flip it around. And then same thing here. I need to establish where that line is that I'm going to cut to. And then I'm just going to kind of fill it in just so I keep it straight in my head that this area right here is what gets removed. Okay. And I can start this right here and then work my way out. So I can establish my first point of cut and then just nibble off the ends and it should be good. So let me go ahead and gear up and let's make these cuts. So you'll probably notice the first cut, I went all the way through and then pulled my piece out and came back. That's because I didn't want, while backing it up, to change this cut. I wanted this to be exactly where it is. Once I get to this point, it doesn't matter because I'm just removing wood, but this one needs to be accurate. So that's why I pushed it to the side. Now let me check. So this is the back, and this would be the side, and that's what we want. So if you look at this nice finish right here, this nice cut, I've got just a tiny, tiny bit of overlap right there, which is exactly what I want. But that's the cut we want right there. So this piece fits inside this slot right here. You can see right this angle right here. So you can see that slot. This piece is going to slot right into there and create our joint, just like that. All right, we need to cut the other side. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to line up my blade just inside that pencil mark, just a hair inside that pencil mark. Because remember, the pencil is not on the line, it's just outside that piece of wood that we use to mark with. Do a check on this one, make sure, and that one is perfect. All right, so this side's done. We're going to go get the other side here, and we're going to mark this one. Okay, so this is the front. It's going to face this way, so I need to cut here and here. So I'm going to mark that same way. And get my piece here, get my pencil, and just mark that across. Remember, you always want to make sure that you've got the correct face of the wood down. This is the inside face, so I always want the inside face down as I'm cutting these. Oh, I need to mark the other one, so we flip it, do it like this. And I've screwed these up enough to know which way I'm supposed to do them now. You only screw up 5 or 6 times before you kind of start to figure this stuff out. Okay, and then this one gets all marked up like that. All right, let's get this one cut, and then we should have a nice little box that we can put together. Get that right where it needs to go, right there. Okay. And if I end up with too many grooves or it's too thick or whatever, I have a router plane that I can use to clean up those bottom edges. I like to leave them a little bit rough because in my opinion, actually I didn't check that. In my opinion, I get better glue bonding if they're just a little bit rough. Perfect. So I don't mind if there's a little bit of roughness in there. They don't have to be perfectly smooth. But if you've got one that's markedly higher because you weren't pushing down as much, then I'll break out the router plane and kind of clean it up because they do need to all be the same height, more or less. The blade I have at my table, it's a ridge carbide, and it's actually pretty nice because it does, oh, see, there's one I messed up right there. It does have a flat tooth, but I missed right there. I'm gonna run it through real quick here, hang on. Actually, I'm not even gonna turn the fan on. There we go. So my ridge carbide has a really nice, it has a triple blade thing. So it has one that goes this way, one that goes this way, and then one that's flat. So I get a pretty good finish across the top. It's not perfect, but it's pretty flat across the top there. All right, and as you can see, I now have here, and we'll bring the back over here. Just like that. And there is a box using rabbets. Now this wood is not sanded on the inside. Probably need to sand this on the inside. So give me a minute. We'll see if we're going to sand it or not. I should sand that because it's just hard to sand after you've done all the assembly and such. It's hard to get those inside edges. Holy garbage, it is just coming down out there. It's crazy. I gotta go check my basement. I have a little leaky spot in my basement I have to keep an eye on every now and then. All right, I'm gonna come back over to here. I'm gonna grab this thing. Got a couple of paper towels here, and I'm just gonna buff this. This stuff gets a little sticky. If you, that's why you need to buff it off. You want to get it so that you're removing all the stuff off the outside. You just buff it. Oh, it looks so nice. But you do want to get all the material off of here, because otherwise you'll have like sticky little messes on there. So just get it off of here. Like I said, you're just buffing it off now. And you can see once I get it removed, it's much easier for me to run the paper towel across there. I mean, they say a lint-free cloth. I like these blue paper towels. I use these for everything, and they're pretty good at most operations like this. All right, let me get the handle here. Whew. Holding it this way. Let's get that handle done. Now, as you come back and put another coat, it will actually pick up the sheen will pick up a little bit. So you can get an improved sheen on here. You can also wax this once it's all fully cured. You can come back and put a wax finish on it. I just want to make sure I get it all off. And then I'll set it back on the little spiky things and just let it continue to sit for at least a day. Wow. It's like build your ark type rain. That's crazy. All right, let me see. Ooh, that looks so nice. That looks really, really nice. Just buff this up a little bit right here. All right, so what do you think? Here's the handle. I think it looks really nice. Let me give you the close-up view here. So, like I said, it's not a super sexy finish, but it is a nice, durable, renewable finish, and it does soak into the wood, and you know, the varnish does provide some sealing and protecting to the material on there. But the walnut turned out really nice. Look at that walnut. Isn't that nice? Look at that. All that end grain polished up really nicely, nice and clean and clear. There's the top with her wedges. Her wedges look really nice. Nice and uniform, nice even thickness on those. And that's the bottom. I mean, the bottom doesn't look great, but who cares, right? So, but this tiger maple handle just looks super sexy, you know, if that's a thing. But come on, look at that. That looks awesome. That looks awesome. All right, gonna set that down to dry. I'm going to just pour the remainder of this back in here. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. It's not much. So I'm going to pour the remainder of that oil back in there. I will hit this again this weekend and put one more coat on there. And then let's see, what else do we need to do? Well, we need to come over here and figure out what we're going to do with this thing. You know what? I'm going to just run, let me move this over here. I'm going to run this through just a couple of grits of paper. And, oh, by the way, tung oil finish is one of those that you definitely do not wad up your rags. You definitely want to make sure that any rags that are soaked in tung oil, that you lay them out and let them dry. That is definitely one that will combust on you if given the chance. It's one of those miracles of chemistry that you don't want to have happen in your house or your shop. All right, these pieces right here have already been done. So I'm gonna sand these pieces right here. I only have two that need to be done. Or if you remember, those end pieces were already in a base. They came from a base already, so they've already had some sanding done to them. These have not, so I don't need to do a lot. It's got a pretty good finish off of the tool, but I am going to hit it with 2 grades of paper. I'm going to go with a 120, which I've got one right here. I'm going to use a 120 and a 150, and that should be suitable for the interior. I'm going to clean this paper off, but I need to get my hose hooked up. Once I get this done, it will be very easy to finish it. We'll put a little glue on there and throw it into the clamps. That just takes a minute, really easy to do. What's harder is finding the end of this extension cord. That's the harder part. And then switching the hose from one sander to the next. Should probably buy another one of these hoses from Rockler. I mean, it really is a nice hose. Let me vacuum this out first. I think that's what I'm going to do, is vacuum the sandpaper off first. Okay. I just wanted to clean that paper off and kind of get any grit and stuff out of there. It'll just be a much more efficient way of cleaning this and sanding this. So let me find my pencil over here. Just going to put some marks on here just so I can kind of keep track of my sanding efforts here. And I just kind of do, that's just the way I do it. So, all right, let's go. All right, that's the 120 done. Let's find the 150 here. Where was that 150 disc? No, I had a 150 here. Where'd it go? 240, 120. Where's my 150? Oh, there it is, down here. 150. We need to clean this one off as well. It is very dusty, dirty. I mean, theoretically, I should have started at 80, but you know, don't always have time for 80. Anybody in the chats? Nobody in the chats today. Very quiet. Very quiet in the chats today. That's okay. It's Friday. People got things to do, getting ready for the weekend. This is my weekend and that's what I do every day. So it doesn't really matter. My weekends and weekdays are pretty much the same. They don't look a whole lot different. All right, I'm going to just get some marks on this one. We're going to do 150 on this, like I said, is my ending point. I'm not going to go any finer than that. And then we'll be done and we can glue. All right, that's enough of that. These now are looking pretty good. They're pretty soft now. That's nice. Let's get our glue bottle. I need to get some clamps and we'll be done. So I'm going to get a couple of my long Bessie clamps here. And then we will just hang these right here for the moment. Stay. See if they'll stay there. I do not need this. Stick my miter gauge down below there. And then we're going to set this up. So these need to be facing up and opposite of each other, these notches. The handles need to be down and facing out so that we finish like this. Okay. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this table saw blade so that I don't get any scratches here. And I need a piece of paper towel to clean my fingers off of when I do the glue. And we need to change to an angle that you can see, like that. All right. So I got some paper towel here. Just like I said, wipe the glue off my fingers. I'm going to flip these kind of like this, just so I know which way they go. And then I'm just going to put a bit of glue. Oh, these glue bottles never want to open. Okay, let's put a little glue on this one. And a little glue on this one. Now there are two gluing surfaces. There's this flat one here. There's also this edge right here. So I like to make sure that I get the glue spread all the way across. I like to get it all the way into the corner, and then make sure that I get glue on this side surface there as well. And everything should be coated in a really light coating of glue. Come over to this one, do the exact same thing. Make sure I squeeze it into the corner. That's really important. Okay, and then set it down in the correct orientation. I'm going to take the glue off my hand here and squeeze it into the, scrape it into that slot there, so I don't need as much in this one. A little glue over here. All right, so we will spread this out same way. Like I said, I really kind of squeeze it into those corners. And I just want a nice even cover on all surfaces, so we get a really good glue up here. And I find that these glue ups do a really good job of holding the wood. This little simple rabbet joint does a great job, but you just have to kind of make sure you're getting your glue in the right spots. All right, making sure all of my orientations are correct. The notches are on the top of the base, facing opposite each other. Handles are down and facing out. So now what we can do is just put this together. So what I'm going to do is simply slide these together like this. Just kind of quickly fit them. You're probably wondering why I'm using my table saw. It's a very nice flat cast iron surface. So I use it as a reference surface. I'll clean any glue off. The glue comes off pretty easy. I've got a wax coat on here, so the glue comes off pretty easy. Now what I do need to do is get a couple of longer clamps to hold these in place, because I can't pick this up and put it in my Bessie's just yet because it'll just kind of fall apart. So what I do is I clamp the sides like this just to hold them together. Then I'll pick the whole thing up and put it in my Bessie clamp. And then I'll readjust these so that I get even clamping pressure along that joint. But this kind of keeps the whole thing so now I can pick it up and not lose those end pieces. All right, so let's grab these. Got one more here. And what I'm going to do is set it on top of these. And the Bessies go just inside. So right here, there's a strip of wood, a 1/4-inch strip of wood that is from this side piece. The Bessie clamp goes just inside that 1/4 inch so that it's putting most of its pressure on this 1/2 inch section that's pushing into this side piece. So I just get that lined up, line up the one on this side, and then just add some gentle pressure to hold it for a moment while I get this one done. Same thing, just inside that 1/4 inch side piece. And the same thing down here. And then I will put some gentle pressure on there. All right. Now what I'm checking for, see right here, this actually slipped. So this side slipped down just a little bit. So I'm going to loosen this and I'm going to get this side back up so that it's flush. That'll give me a better glue joint and less material I have to remove afterwards. Because if it's uneven, then I'll have to remove that material, which makes it a little lighter. But that feels good. That feels good right there. These are lined up and look good. Okay, so now I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on my clamps. Not a lot. I don't want it to bow out or anything. Just enough to get pressure across that entire face of that joint. I'm going to get the sides here, and I'm going to squeeze these in because, I'm going to turn it around, I really want to make sure that I'm getting clamping pressure from this way and this way on this joint. I can flip this around, just easier for me to get a better handhold this way. All right. There we go. So now I've got good clamping pressure from all four sides. The last thing I'm going to do is check this for square, because it's really of no good if it's crooked. So I'm just going to go grab my, my little woodpecker square, and I'm going to check the sides to make sure that it's good, which it looks to be. And then the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get one more clamp on here. I've got a little bit of bowing going on. Just because I'm pushing so much from the ends, it tends to bow just a tiny bit. So all I'm going to do is just kind of give a little squeeze, keep the sides in. That keeps the pressure up, but it keeps them square, because if you let them dry or you let them sit too long and they're bowed, well, the bow's going to stay. So we're going to get rid of that bow just by squeezing it in a little bit. Keeps it nice and straight. And that should be nice and straight there. So my corners are very square. Straight. And we have a very nice looking base. Now I can flip this whole thing up and let it dry. And I usually let them dry like this, standing straight up and down. So there you go. That's, this is what we're after. Really nice, straight, square box. It's exciting, right? But that's what it is. Straight, square box. I'm going to set this off to the side and let it dry or cure. Let that glue set up. And it's in no rush. Come back over front. We'll wrap up for the day. Look at 1:30, man. I'm on time today. All right. So we got that in glue. We got super mallet done here. That looks so pretty. Look how pretty that looks. Isn't that nice? This will look good with a little coat of wax on there too. It'll add a little bit, once I come back and hit it with a second coat of the tung oil finish, it'll give me a little bit more of a sheen. Creates a remarkably durable hand-rubbed luster in minutes. So, but it's easy, like I said, it's easy to restore the finish using something like that. You know, because it's a hand tool. Like this one, I don't know, I think I've hit this couple of times with boiled linseed oil, but I just kind of give it a really light sanding and then hit it with the boiled linseed oil, and it always comes back and looks great. So boiled linseed oil a lot of times is what I would use, but I just wanted to use the tung oil finish on this because I like that little amber, and I like the varnish that's inside. I think it just kind of adds just a little bit to it. But yeah, that's really pretty. I like it. All right, so that's done. I'll add another coat this weekend, and then that'll look super. I'm going to spend most of my weekend, hopefully, spraying lacquer. Because like I said, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 8 bases that need to be fully sprayed with lacquer, and then get those curing in my basement. And that means I can actually then post them. I have 11 fully constructed. 3 of them are already finished with lacquer. 4 of them with lacquer. So I have 12. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 of them? Yeah, 12 of them fully done in terms of construction and staining. I still have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bases that need to be lacquered, and once everything is done and lacquered, then I can go ahead and photograph them and then list them for sale. Although a couple of them are custom things for friends, so those don't get sold. But anyway, but I can list them for sale. So those are dollar bills that are just sitting there waiting for me to finish. And you know, I kind of just average in my head. Well, it's I go, oh, that's $100 a pop. More, less, taxes, fees, everything else, it works out to a little over $100 a pop for me. So that's kind of what I use as a rough estimate. So I'm looking at like $1,200 of projects just sitting here waiting to be done. So, you know, that's incentive for me to kind of get things moving and take my spare time. And then, hey, that's like $1,200 towards, like, I don't know, a laser engraver, right? Or something like that. So who knows? Maybe one day. Christmas is coming up. Nobody's going to buy me one for Christmas, but anyway, I think I'm going to start working towards that end. I did have to buy a new planer recently. I wasn't planning on it, but now I have one. So, you know, that's one less tool to worry about at the moment. And I can start concentrating on doing some other stuff. I will more than likely, once I get Frankenbase is what I'm calling that. Frankenbase done. I'm going to start in on some other bases as well. I might do some cutting boards. I've got to go next week. I'm going to go to my wood guy. I want to get some 8/4 walnut because I want to make legs for that table that I'm working on, that cherry live edge table. I want to make legs for that. I want to start cutting. I want to do some epoxy filling on that. I got to buy epoxy. Gil, that's going to be expensive. Hopefully I don't need too much. But I'm going to do epoxy filling on that. I need to do leg construction on that. I want to get it finished. I want to get it sold if it's going to sell. I'm trying to figure out what to sell that for. I'm figuring somewhere around $700-ish. It's probably where that's going to land. $700 to $800 depending. And I don't know if it's ever going to sell because I'm going to sell it local. I don't want to ship something like that. Shipping costs are ridiculous, and people who ship tables and such, I mean, they make crates for them and such, and ship them with big shipping companies, and that's not me. I'm not in that realm. So typically, bases I can ship. I can put those in boxes and put them on my mailbox. The guy will pick them up. It's awesome. Bigger items, like I still have the table that I made, which was the, I had the, oops, somebody just messaged me. I made the table, the knockdown table, the cherry one, really beautiful. It's all lacquered. It's sitting in my living room, still listed for sale on Facebook. I'm going to move it to my Etsy page. Or I'm going to post it on my Etsy page, but it's still a local pickup because I don't want to ship that thing. I don't even know how much it weighs, but having to come up with a shipping arrangement, and then I would rather somebody pick that up because I can show them how to assemble it, what to be careful of, how to not damage it. If you ship it to them and then they bust it and they're like, hey, it was broken. Well, that's an issue. So I don't want that to happen. So that's a local pickup for me. But I might get traction on my Etsy page. We'll see. It's listed for like $500, which is a very reasonable price. But if I could sell that, for about $800, I sell these for like $1,200. Well, that's my laser engraver right there. Like those projects are done. I also got a lot of wood here that I want to make. I've got some exotic stuff. I've got some sapele. I've got I have some zebra wood. I think I have some zebra wood here that I want to make some stuff out of. This is cool stuff. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to make a base out of this. This is cool stuff. Look at this. This is zebra wood. This is also about $20 a board foot. It's really freaking expensive. So this would be a very expensive base for someone if they wanted one. And you know what? Sometimes the exotic ones sit for a while, but it's just a matter of finding the right buyer. or having the right buyer find your stuff. So I think next batch will be an exotic. I mean, that zebra, that's gonna be a $150 base, because I'll make a full size one with a compartment. That's a $150 base easily, to cover my costs and to have a profit. So anyway, I've got some other sapele and some other stuff. So I'll start making some exotic bases, and you know, cover my Christmas present buying expenses too. So anyway, but that's kind of what's coming down the road. We'll see. Anyway, right now, 1:35, 1:36. It is Friday. I need to check my basement for water, and I need to get some lunch, and I've got a guitar lesson later today. That's just a thing that I do and enjoy. So anyway, you have yourself a wonderful Friday. Oh, and I got a message that a friend of mine wants to go get frozen yogurt this afternoon. So maybe I'll do that and go meet her up there. And so a former employee, and so she's really fun, and she lives down the road. So we have coffee and frozen yogurts every now and then. So it's kind of fun to catch up, because she fills me in on all the work gossip that I no longer get to hear. Anyway, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going to go eat lunch. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. Get in your shop and do stuff. If you don't have a shop, you know, get a tool out, make something, fix something. It's fun. It's great to do. And you know what? Here's the other thing. Make something for yourself, because yeah, it's awesome. So anyway, have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. If I can find the button, because it's here somewhere.